communications, CIC communications, then you'll be forced to fight first person, third person style, even if you're outnumbered. So, let's say you go to a system, you're just going to it, and there's this massive pirate fleet, say 200, 300 ships, fighting against, let's say a group of bounty hunters, or maybe the Talarath or something. There's some other entity. If you choose to join that battle, and we'll talk about this other aspect that I have forgotten about all through every recording I've done for this particular one till just now, and I think maybe the third or fourth time I tried recording this whole video. Back like last year sometime. Then you'll be forced to fight all those ships as, just whatever ships you have with you, and AI will control those, and you'll be in control of your own ship. No RTS style elements at all. So in those situations, you have to weigh the consequences, If you're so outnumbered, is it even feasible that you could ever win, or would you just, end up being cannon fodder? So you have to make the decision whether or not to join the fight or whether to run if you end up fighting it just by default. Maybe it's just the pirates there. They're setting up ambushes or something for people coming through the gates because you got that flare going on, and they're taking advantage of it. They're exploiting that natural event to prey upon ships. So you have to decide whether to go back through the gates, try and escape some other way, or fight them and maybe win, but probably die depending on, or at least get your ship blown up, depending on how strong your ship is. Now let's talk about, if we're going to the in-RTS game battle effect kind of things, area effect things, let's talk about the choice between who to back during a multi-faction fight, we'll call it. An MFF. So he can assist or not assist will depend on the relationship system, which we'll talk about in the next series of videos. If you have a really good relationship, let's say 40 or higher, with an entity that's in battle with another entity that's just any other entity, then you'll be able to assist them in battle. Now let's say that there's a battle going on between two entities that you have that level of relationship with. You'll be able to back either one of them, but at the same time when you do that, the other side will have a negative impact on your relationship with them. How much will just depend. Now, for the other side of that example, let's say they both hate you. It's like maybe negative 40 and below. In that instance, it becomes a free-for-all. So that means that you can fight both the side, you can shoot down ships from both sides, but they can both also attack you. So it may be a situation where you end up fighting two different sides at once. So again, it's something you have to weigh, and also choosing sides is something you have to weigh as well. So that's just going to be another extra additional layer of interestingness on top of a whole heap of interesting already. So now for the area of effect environmental events, we'll call them. AOE. That works, okay. AOE. So what I'm talking about with this is the same kind of thing like a solar flare or plasma storm, but that's happened during a RTS battle. So it wasn't existing when you first started the battle, but after the battle started, it shows up or happens or whatever. In this situation, there will be different kinds of effects that will happen depending on what that event is. So if it's a plasma storm, the plasma storm will just kind of drift and change in dimension through the battlefield as time goes on, and eventually just kind of pass through it. But what will happen is that any ships that get caught up in it will have penalties applied to them depending on skills and whatnot. So, for example, you send ships through an area, plasma storm comes through, you'll lose the ability to control those ships. Those ships will start flying erratically. They'll also be slowed down, and their targeting of enemies will be greatly hindered, so they'll probably miss a lot. And you won't be able to regain control of them until after they leave the plasma storm or the plasma storm passes. Same thing with enemies, though. So you could use them strategically. Let's say, like, for example, you're in a battle, you're losing. You've managed to kill off a whole wave of enemies, and you're getting ready to counterattack. And there's this like small bottleneck passage in the map that you're drawing the enemies through to try and fight them more easily. So you bring them through there, and then this plasma storm ends up rolling through. And what you can do with that situation is pull your ships back and let the enemy ships just kind of flounder around in there, and you can fire in at them, because there would be an accuracy penalty applied because you're firing into it, and targeting scanners wouldn't work as well, but it'd be more accurate than if you put your ships into it. So you can use it tactically like that. But you can also train some skills that will allow you to strengthen and shield your communications equipment on the ships, so that the negative effects of those plasma storms are diminished a little bit. You'll never completely diminish the effects. You'll be able to regain control of your ships. They'll still move pretty slowly, and the accuracy will be less accurate than normal, more than if you're firing into it, but less than it would be without the skill. So it still has some disadvantages, but unless the AI also has those skills trained, you'll have a distinct advantage over them in that situation. Another situation would be for solar flare, CMJ, in other words, coronal mass ejection, CME rather. In this situation, the effects would be wholly and really restrictively area of effect. So the flare would come through, and any ships that would pass through the area, either when the flare comes through or for a period of time after it, will suffer the effects of intense radiation. The only reason solar flares don't kill life on Earth from the radiation they cause is because of the atmosphere and the magnetosphere and all that kind of stuff that shields our planet from that those kinds of things that happen. Out in space, there's not going to be anything like that. I mean, there's already going to be some level of shielding in the ships, but it's going to be for background radiation. It's not going to be designed to withstand full blast radiation from a pissed off sun. So it's going to have an effect of damaging the crew. So again, like I mentioned, or rather will mention, I've already recorded the video talking about crew members, but we'll talk about that too. That's something else I forgot to mention. But crew members within the ships are going to be kind of a resource of their own. You'll get crew members the same way you get Zarn over time, depending on the colonies that you have and the output of the population that they have, that they're producing for committing to the cause. There'll be a certain sub% of the population of kids that turn into adults will volunteer for the to help your military causes or what have you. But the crew will be independent of the ship. So there's two ways you can take a ship out of, remove the threat of a ship during battle, RTS battle. The first is just to blow the something up. The second way is to actually kill the crew off. Without the crew, the ship can't function. And so that allows you to either commandeer it or, essentially scrap it and reclaim those resources, for your own purposes. So what the radiation from a solar flare will do is it will actually sicken and start to kill off do damage to the crew, as long as they're within the radiation stream or the effect area of the radiation stream from a solar flare. You can also use some types of weapons that'll be putting in the game to do that. Just like some sort of maybe warhead that will leak radiation into a ship that you can then kill off the crew that way and get extra resources for use either in the battle or after the battle by claiming those ships, or taking them over and turning them against their previous owners. So that's and also solar flares will destroy most ships that are battle cruiser and below, because the shielding and whatnot won't be able to handle that radiation. Shield to go down, the rest of the flare will just essentially disintegrate the ship's structures, thereby destroying them. Battleships and up though will have tougher shielding that will be more likely to sustain damage from that kind of a situation. Excuse me. And that brings us to meteor showers. That'll be the third of the planned kind of environmental things that can happen during RTS battle. So, meteor showers will happen just kind of randomly, depending on various things, like, for example, how many asteroid belts a system has, if there's been a planet that's been blown up in that system, stuff like that. And what they'll do is essentially relatively small area of effect damage to anything within that area, whether it be structures or ships. Also, for the radiation for the solar flare, if the flare happens to go through your base, you're pretty much screwed. Just really, there may be a way that maybe a technology you can get, or a mod that you can install, or maybe a skill that you can train to help make it so that your construction, essentially your HQ of the base, can be somewhat shielded from that kind of thing. But it's going to probably take out most of the rest of your structures, and it probably will, lose the battle for you. So there's going to be an element of luck involved with winning battles, if that kind of situation arises. It won't be very often, and that kind of scenario will happen even less often, but it will probably happen at least once during one game. Yeah, so asteroids will kind of fly through the particular area they're going through, damage everything around that's in that area, be it ship or structure. They probably won't destroy most structures, but they probably will destroy most lower end ships, so probably cruiser and down. Battle cruiser and up probably will just do some moderate to severe damage, and above command ship probably won't do too much damage. Let's see what else is there to talk about for RTS. And we've still got like 4 other battle modes to go. We're already an hour into this. So, I think that pretty much covers everything for the RTS battles. We'll talk about planetary battle in a bit here, because it's related to the RTS battle, but it's also its own thing, so I'll talk about that later. No, let's talk about it now. We'll talk about it next. So RTS, ARTS, Action RTS. So we'll skip to that because that's more related. These are going to be missions like some of the ones in StarCraft 2, where you have a hero unit that you're in control of, or just a specific unit you're in control of, and it has abilities and is a little more tough than regular other units of the same kind. And you basically go through and are trying to complete some sort of objective. You may may have other heroes that come with you. You may find other units during the battle, or you may not. You will be able to bring whatever units you have with you into that RTS mission, but you won't be able to make any new ones. Really, that's all for that one. So, planetary battle. So this is going to be another kind of lengthy topic to discuss, just because it's a multi-staged thing. So, for the first 3... Yeah. first three phases of planetary battle, it's pretty much going to be the same, whether same as with RTS. It'll be either an RTS style battle or it'll be first person, third person style battle. We'll talk about that later on. And again, it'll depend on how many ships you're facing. So how the progression goes is you start out with fighting any kind of defense militia that planet has. So any planet that's class 1 or higher can have a defense militia. Class 0 planets will not have defense militias. Yeah, defense militias. If you enter into a fight with a defense militia and either retreat or lose, the militia will slowly rebuild itself over time. So if you retreat from a battle, you go replenish your forces and come back fast enough, you may be able to take on that militia while it's still at reduced strength, so it'll be easier to take on. Once you take out the militia, or if there is no militia, then you have to deal with the planetary defense platforms. And these are going to be like orbital weapons platforms, either satellites or maybe installations built on small artificial asteroids or something like that I'm put into orbit around a planet to defend it. Again, so it's going to be like RTS style kind of thing going on where you can do that or first person. Have base since they got the weapons, basically. There won't be any ships to fight in that situation for RTS or third person, first person. But the planetary defense platforms are going to be a lot harder to destroy than any kind of ship. Except maybe a Titan. I think Titans will probably be a little stronger than defense platforms will be. A lot stronger in terms of the defensive end of it. So maybe closer to a battleship, I guess. So not going to be really easy to destroy, even the ones guarding lower end planets. So once you get rid of the platforms can be any kind of weapon, whether it be heavy, missile, laser, railgun, any of the types of weapons they can be. So, for example, heavy weapon planetary defenses are going to be a real pain in the ass because they're going to be high damage, hard to get close to without getting blown up, and I'll take them out from a range. And there may be situations where you have long-range defenses paired up with the heavy weapons defenses, and so you'll have to devise some sort of plan to take all the things out maybe at once, or maybe a way to whittle down the long-range ones, then take on the heavy weapons ones. So again, it's going to be your general RTS style gameplay. After that, you get to the shields phase of it. There won't be any. I shouldn't say that. At this point, the defense militias will start to rebuild during battle. It won't be very quickly, but it'll be kind of a similar kind of build-up for normal kind of RTS battle scenario. And the phase will end when you take out the shields. It won't matter if you take out the... there won't be any construction facilities to take out. The ships will just be produced on the surface and sent up, because they already have taken out all that kind of stuff during the militia phase. So once you take out the shields, that's when you go to the next phase, which is going to be either... You're going to have two options for that. You're going to be able to either attack the planet directly with bombs, or you're going to be able to invade it. So let's talk about the bombing first. It's essentially going to be kind of like a mini-game, if you will. You'll be presented with a screen or a panel or something that'll have a list of the bombs that are equipped on the ships that you have in your fleet, if you have one. And you'll be able to chain the bombs up, and depending on the chain that you create, you'll have different effects. So, for example, well, let's say that you want to, you don't want to destroy the population on the planet, but you want to cripple the economic output of the planet. Just to kind of, give the empire that owns it a little bit of a bloody nose. So what you would probably want to do then is grab some bombs that damage infrastructure more than they do general population, and pair those up with some other types of bombs that will have greater effects on technology and things like that, EMP bombs or something, and chain those up in such a way that you increase the damage to infrastructure over population. Or another scenario would be that you want to send down like a nanovirus plague or something to wipe out the population and leave everything else intact. But then you also want to be able to colonize it soon after. So you would send down some of those bombs that have that plague, and then you would send down some bombs that would, over time, start killing off the nanomachines. So that after a little bit of time has passed, you'd be able to send down a colonizing colony ship to colonize that planet. Or maybe you just want to go all on nuclear and drop a bunch of nukes and make the planet glow for 1,000 years or something. You can do that too, and make it so it's pretty much uninhabitable to any race, even with radiation scrubbers and things like that. You'd have to use so many of them for so long that it would be economically infeasible to ever inhabit that planet within a reasonable time frame, as far as real game playing time is concerned. So it's going to be that kind of a system. So for invasion, that's going to be something a little bit different. Really, it's more annexation, we'll say. So in annexation mode, you have two different choices. You can allow the invasion to happen automatically through the AI doing stuff, or calculations in the background, or you can increase your chances of success and carry out the missions yourself. So that's really the main two differences between the two. The automated one will be faster, but it lacks the human element. There will be a greater chance that you'll fail at conquering the planet. And on the other hand, if you do it yourself, it'll take a little bit longer, but you have a greater chance of success. Again, that'll depend on the skills you have. If you have skills high enough, you can reduce the likelihood of failing during automatic annexation by a bit, but not by too much. So how the annexation system is going to work is this. Each planet will have a certain defensive value associated with it, depending on just how large the planet is, technological advancements, the military population, and a couple other randomization-based values from the planetary metrics. They'll just be used to kind of randomize the difficulty, if you will, of planets. Essentially, gauging the difficulty it will be to take that planet over to capture it. In order to annex a planet to your empire, you have to get this value down to 50% or lower. And at 50%, the lower you go past 50%, the more likely it is that there won't be an uprising after you conquer it before skills are applied. So even after you take over a planet, there will be a chance that planet will then resist, rebel against you, and then declare independence. Whether they do that or not depends on a couple things, from how they viewed their previous empire versus your empire, and how much you got that defensive value down, and some skills. So if a planet really liked their previous empire, then it's going to be harder for you to properly maintain control of that planet after you take it over. If the reverse is true, though, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to do. Obviously, over time, opinions change, depending on if you protect the planet from attacks, pirate raids, you deal with any situations they have, you see to their needs, if they have any critical needs that aren't being fulfilled. like, their water supply is running low, and there's a drought maybe or something, and so you need to supply the water to the planet or something, or the planet will secede from your empire or something like that. That kind of a situation. So how it works is that you have this value that gauges the difficulty it will be to conquer the planet, and you complete missions to drop that amount, and how much it drops and the effects that you have missions that you can complete, and depending on what the missions are and some skills that you have and how well you complete the missions, it'll have various impacts on both this value that you'll decrease by completing that mission, and also the how effective completing successive missions will be. So let's say, for example, that you have 4 or 5 missions for a particular planet. The defense value maybe will be, let's say, 15, so it's an easier type of planet. And you have a choice. You have a military installation to attack, power station to attack, population center to attack, research center to attack, and we'll say another public center to attack. So, depending on which areas you decide to attack first, different things will happen. For example, if you attack the population centers, the military and research installations, which are going to be, research will be military research, obviously, are going to be put into a heightened state of security, so it'll be more difficult to complete those missions for, no increase in the effect of completing those missions. So, like, completing the missions after you put them into the higher state of security isn't going to make you reduce that defense value more than if you did so before you did that. That just makes them more difficult. However, if you go take out that power facility, that's going to have the opposite effect probably on the military and research facilities by causing some of the automated security to go offline because there's not enough power. Or maybe it shorts it out because the power is interrupted and there's like a surge or something that knocks out that stuff. And so those missions will be easier to complete. Let's say that during one of the missions you do something that has a larger impact on the whole situation than would otherwise. So let's say, for example, you... and this will be kind of like a random occurrence. It won't happen every time, and you won't be able to really expect it to happen, but maybe there's some sort of official or government official or otherwise on that facility at that time. You can take them hostage or kill them and have your effect on the battle during that period of time have a larger impact on the effects on how the rest of it's going to proceed. So you take a little bit more off the defensive value, and other targets might be more weakened, or maybe a different may change the possible paths you have to complete the annexation of that planet. So again, you'll have to think tactically about what you're going to do. You can't just go in and say, I'll just pick one at random and do this one, then I'll do that one, then I'll do that one. You have to say, well, if I do this one, it's going to make these ones harder. So do I want to do that, or do I want to do this one, which is going to either not affect the difficulty of the other ones, or make the other ones easier? So you'll have that kind of a, there'll be that kind of a tactical decision to make. So you'll do the missions, and it will be possible that you do all the missions but still don't have that defensive value low enough to start the final mission for annexation. In that situation, you would have to leave and then come back later. You won't be able to re-invade a planet right away, but the value will increase fairly gradually over time. It won't take like a hugely long time, but it'll take long enough that you can leave, allow the the invasion cooldown to end and then be able to reinvade and still not have to be at 100% completely refilled.